Hello, mid-March 2025. Still here, still on Mother Earth, watching the planets as they appear to travel around us, reflecting back what's going on Mother Earth. Today, looking at the US of A's birth chart and their transiting planets for this year. What's going on in this country that's affecting us all so very much? Transiting Pluto is a good place to start. Very important activity going on in the USA's chart with transiting Pluto. Where did Pluto start in the USA's birth chart? This is important. Where did Pluto start in your chart? Your birth chart, the position of Pluto and the house that Pluto was in at birth, the things of that house, that's where your power source is. This is where your source of power is most strong in your lifetime, is the house and the things of the house being affected and influenced by birth, death, powerful energy. Now this is either power coming towards you or power coming from you. But in the USA, all of this power is collected in the second house. The second house is the house of finances. Finances, possessions, are money. And the money is the source of power for this country. And it's their primary focus at this time in history, most definitely because Pluto has come back to where it started from. 250-year orbit. It takes Pluto 250 years to make one whole cycle through this chart. And it has just, in the last 2 years, come back to where it started from. And now we're at the beginning stages for the US of A into a whole new birth, a whole new beginning phase, which the next 250 years cycle is beginning. Will it be a democracy or will it be a dictatorship? This is the whole question, because we're at the beginning stages, and that same choice is being made that was made at the beginnings of this country. So this planet of power and control, Pluto, is slowly traveling through the second house in the USA's chart. Finances, money, taxes, tariffs, income and money that would be there for poor people or not around the world and within the country itself. Their inner financial workings and structures all being torn apart, death and rebirth. At the death stage, we would assume right now, with Elon Musk focusing on all the different departments and removing great quantities of money from their budget, from their income, and how it is spent. At any rate, Pluto's going to continue on manifesting that power. But what's happening karmically for this country as they move through this energy? Donald Trump's at his highest point in terms of power right now. But what will be the result of all of these energies and actions that have been going out from this country in the last 2 months? We look and see Pluto traveling here in the second house, and we see Uranus traveling in the sixth house. Uranus, that planet of disruptive change or positive change initiated for good. Change is the name of the game with Uranus. And it's coming back to where it started from. It's an explosive energy. It represents explosive new beginnings, inventiveness, originality, eccentricity, uniqueness, accidental energy, explosive energy, and explosions themselves. This would be Uranian energy, and it is in the sixth house where it started from, really getting close, coming back to its beginning, the same as Pluto is. Now, Uranus makes one full cycle every 80 years. And transiting Uranus is entering Gemini this year. As it gets closer during the next 4 years this is building, we're going through a period of time, if we look at history, and this is what we do with astrology, time itself is cyclic in nature and patterns repeat. The energy pattern repeats, not the event, the energy pattern. So similar events occur. Transiting Uranus has only come through the USA's birth chart 3 times. It started here and first entered, the first time ever, just as their civil war started. It made one full 80-year cycle and was coming through the second time when they dropped the atomic bomb in Hiroshima in Japan, 1945, at the end of the war. So it was coming back to where it started from during World War II, and when it hit the doorway and actually entered the House of War in 1945, they dropped the atomic bomb. It's coming back again as the point, and it will cross this point and enter this House of War again in 2029. Take note. I won't be here, I would expect, not logically. Transiting Jupiter has just entered the 7th house, a much minor energy, no great large explosions going on, but nonetheless it's a large infusion of energy to the house of interpersonal relationships with other countries that this country is involved with. And Mars is sitting right there in the doorway. This is a very warlike nation. And whenever Mars is activated by these transiting planets, in the past, historically, there has been active engagement in military action. So Jupiter is actively involved now in small skirmishes. Again, historically, that's what we've seen the other times Jupiter went through the 7th house. But I'm very concerned for when Uranus gets to this point of entering the 7th house. Hopefully, some calm, peaceful energy will become involved, and a new beginning and a new way of interacting with other countries will come into the path for the USA. It's possible. The repeating pattern of war continually does not have to happen. But this is the mirror reflection of what energy is building towards. I mean, the other very significant thing, well, right now, of course, nobody's communicating, and Venus and Mercury are both retrograde in the country's home base. The 4th house in astrology, in everyone's chart, is the house of your home, your land, your residence, your mother. And for a country, it's the homeland itself. It's the homeland, the country itself. And there's not going to likely be much communication clarifying anything connected to these terraforms or other involvements that the USA is mixed up with, Putin, the Ukraine, the Middle East. Clarity of communication is not likely until these 2 inner planets, Venus and Mercury, turn retrograde direct. And the direct motion develops the 1st and 2nd week in April. Then at least some communication, some talking should start. But for now, the blocks are up. And the focus is on all of the Aries energy that seems to be apparent in the world right now. Venus and Mercury are both retrograde in Aries. It's the Aries time of year. And the planet Mars, which rules Aries, is just recently turned direct after a long retrograde period. But the long-term effect of what's going on now for the US of A. I didn't talk yet about Neptune and Saturn. This is extreme energy manifesting here, and this won't really show up fully until March of 2026. Neptune is going to move into the 4th house of the US of A, into their homeland, into their home, their residence. It has not been there since 1861 was the last time it entered, which was precisely as the Civil War started. 11 states left the Union, and they started fighting with full war, guns. A nasty war that lasted many years and nearly destroyed the US of A. Was what happened the last time Neptune went through the fourth house, and that's what's coming towards the fourth house now. If the focus between now and next March could shift and become more spiritual, more Neptunian on a positive side, more focused on healing and healing the nation with new structures and new bridges, new roads, new work, new supportive energy for the people of the country, that could possibly use this energy up so it doesn't show the way it did originally and the way it may again. Is there going to be another civil war? Certainly, war activity of some kind seems to be building with some other country or within their own borders. And Saturn is an interesting planet to watch. It has a 30-year orbit. Neptune takes 164 years, by the way, and that's how long it's been since the Civil War. And Neptune will be in their fourth house for 10 years. And Saturn is also going to enter the fourth house with Neptune next March. Next March is like the beginning of a very difficult period for the country of the US of A. It looks like it will be very difficult in many ways for Canada as well, and for other countries during the 2006 period, when the USA is having challenging problems. Usually that spreads out to the rest of the world. And the USA is definitely having some real issues to deal with from some source. It's interesting, when Saturn went through the fourth house, as it has done once every 30 years for this country, their history of that, Saturn was traveling through the fourth house when the Depression was experienced, the Great Depression in the 1930s. Tremendous problems with no rain and dust bowls and horrendous dust storms in the center part of the country, and farms becoming desolate. People had a very great deal of difficulty just feeding themselves in the 1930s, and this certainly was the case in the US of A. And Saturn was traveling through the fourth house during those years. So that's one thing that could happen, is more challenging circumstances with our weather and with the basics of life, because of all of this power tripping going on with our systems that we have in place, bringing food and goods around and about, that we've put into place as humans, that we're now ripping and tearing. This country's ripping and tearing all of these systems up. The results could become quite horrendous. But we will survive. As we survived this depression, we'll always survive. Pluto, slow mover. Neptune, slow mover. Saturn, not so much. And Saturn will only be in the fourth house of the USA for 4 years. Now, another thing that once happened when Saturn traveled through the fourth house, it was during the 1960s, the Vietnam War. And tremendous numbers of people, thousands of people, were protesting in the streets. Will there be protesting? Will there be millions or thousands of people in the streets protesting in a big way again, like there was in the 60s for that war? What will the protesting be happening about? Will it be because there's a disagreement with how the government has messed things up with what they're doing this year? We'll have to wait and see, but both Saturn and Neptune enter the fourth house for the US of A next March. And Saturn's history in that house brings challenge and difficulties. Neptune's history in that house brings challenge and difficulties. And we're building towards this expression of warlike energy that seems to be growing. And it's all about the money. Take note with your own birth chart where Pluto was at birth. What house was Pluto in your chart at birth? That's where your source of power lies. Knowing the houses and the things they symbolize is a great help in using the tool of astrology, which is meant to be used as a tool for self-awareness, not as a predictive device, in my opinion. Take care.